Chicago Sports Desk. As always, I'm Alex Bursty, and welcome back to the show. Today we are having part one of two parts of our NBA preview. We're doing this a little different than our Big Ten preview. So instead of having two episodes in one day, we're going to have one episode this week and one episode next week. We're going to be a few days late because, the season started yesterday, and there'll be a week of games next week, but that just gives me one or two more reasons to support my evidence in my rankings. So let's get right into it with our Eastern Conference preview. So I have our 15 teams from the Eastern Conference, and so I have our 8 playoff teams and our 7 non-playoff teams. So I'll give you my rankings and reasoning for that, and then my playoff bracket on the Eastern side. So starting at the bottom, as always, we have our Brooklyn Nets. They have not gone anywhere in the past few seasons, and I don't think they are going to get anywhere. But Brooklyn and New York, the two New York teams, are really not getting anywhere either. I have them at 14 and 15. So those two could swatch places, but the two New York teams have gone nowhere. Losing Carmelo Anthony and Jeremy Lin, I believe, is going to kill these two teams. So just don't look for any improvement from the New York teams. Also, we have our hometown team, Chicago. Chicago Sports Desk is all around disappointed in the decision-making in the front office. Dropping Jimmy Butler for some injured players, just not good choice. Bulls are in quote-unquote rebuilding stage right now, but I don't think they're going to get anywhere, at least this season, hoping for a high draft pick. They have a 25% chance to get the first draft pick, and I have them coming at number 13. Number 12, we have Detroit. When you see Detroit at first, they're a pretty legit team. They have some really good players. The problem is their age. So age can be one of two things. It can either mean A, playoff experience, or B, weaker bodies. And in the Detroit's case, since they haven't been, for a few years now, they haven't been really a playoff team, their bodies are more growing old instead of growing experience, which is why I have Detroit at 12, even though I could see them at 9 or possibly even getting that 8 or 7 seed in the playoffs. Number 11, we have Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic is always that team that has a few good games, but a lot of bad games, and I just have them at around the middle of the pack at number 11. Number 10, we have the Indiana Pacers. After letting go of Paul George for a very bad trade, in my opinion, they are not going to be getting anywhere as soon as I see, and I could see them even dropping, but I don't see them getting any higher than number 10. That brings us to number 9, Miami. Miami's one of my up and down teams. I started at them with number 5. Then I moved them to 7, 6, and now back down to 9. I think Chris Bosh retiring, I just don't think Miami has a good enough team. But they have a few young players and a few experienced players that can make a run in the next 1 or 2 years, especially seeing how this season plays out. Number 8, we have Milwaukee. Milwaukee has the possible MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, on their team, and he really is poses a threat to this rest of the weak Eastern Conference. I can see Milwaukee getting anywhere up to even the top 5 with a young team but fully recovered. Chris Middleton, Jabari Parker, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they're all showing up. If they show up this season, bam, Milwaukee's a playoff contender. Number 7, Charlotte. Kemba Walker is their team. They have Michael Jordan as their owner. They have Kemba Walker as their point guard. That's all they need to make a playoff run. Enough said. Number 6, Boston. Boston, hashtag pray for Hayward. Boston's in trouble. Without Hayward, their regular season might be weak. Here's why I have a playoff team. Sure, they traded for Kyrie. That might have been the smartest move. People saw it as a stupid move, but it might have been blessing in disguise. With Hayward injured, Isaiah Thomas could not load the team on his back after losing all their starters. Kyrie, though, can, because he's been wanting this limelight. He gets what he wants, and then the end of the season, they get a boatload from Hayward when he comes back from his injury, possibly. Bam, I have Boston at 6. Number 5, Atlanta. Mainly because of Dennis Schroeder playing right next to the new stadium. I have Atlanta having a really good season. They're not that good of a playoff team, so I'm not sure how far they're going to get there, but I have them definitely getting to the playoffs. Number 4, Philadelphia. You haven't heard their name yet. I did not forget about the 76ers. They're in the playoffs. What? Markelle Fultz, Joel Embiid, they have a legit team right now, and I don't see them getting much further away from the 4 seed because they really are a good team. You think about it, they've racked up these picks. Now that there's a lot of those getting harder to get good picks, they've decided they want to contend for it, and bam, they can if they want. Number 3, Cleveland. Cleveland's going to have a good season, but not a great season. Trading for Isaiah Thomas is kind of a weak move, considering he won't get back until January. But you do have LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and I'm forgetting their other player who did really good last night. But they have some really good players who are showed up in last night's game, a 102-99 win against the Boston Celtics, where Hayward got injured. But Cleveland has some good players, but not returning Kyrie Irving is going to kill them. Number 2, Washington. The Washington Wizards, a name you always hear in preseason rankings, you don't always hear in June, but Washington, I have a feeling they're going to finally break through this year. And number 1, we have Toronto, and I'll give you more about them in the playoffs. So, let's start at the bottom of our playoff bracket. We have number 2, Washington, number 7, Charlotte. Upset? Yes, I do. In 6 games, I have Charlotte. Kemba Walker can build his team. The team is built around Kemba Walker, and I think he's really going to deliver this season. MVP? I'm not sure, but this upset has MVP written all over it as Charlotte takes down Washington in 6. In our 3-6 game, we have Cleveland and Boston, and I have Boston taking down the reigning Eastern Conference champs in a 7-game series. That's going to be a thriller. If Hayward's back, I think Boston can definitely do it. Then we have the 4-5 match. We have Philadelphia and Atlanta, and the young Philadelphia team can take down a less star-studded Atlanta Hawks team. Bam, we have Philadelphia going in 5. And Toronto-Milwaukee. This is a 1-8 game that I can really see being anywhere from a 4-5 game, because these teams could do really good or really bad, all the way to a 1-8 game on Milwaukee being 1 and Toronto being 8. But I have this game going to 7, but Toronto getting the W. It's home field advantage in Toronto, Game 7. So then we have the semis. We have Boston, Charlotte. I have Boston going in 5 just because Charlotte is experienced. And same on the other end. I have Toronto beating Philadelphia in 4 games because of playoff experience. And this is the toughest series to pick, Toronto-Boston. But I just have Toronto playing it out in the end. So Toronto awaits their opponent in the NBA Finals, in my opinion. So that's all the time we have for today. Make sure you follow the Chicago Sports Desk on Instagram to get any news we have for the new podcast. We're at 11 episodes. I'm really excited. We have 32 followers so far, so thanks for all the support. Also, make sure to follow us on Spreaker so you can get any updates about when I go live, which I'm going to look into doing so you guys can call in live and do some cool stuff. And then also just whenever I record an episode. But that's all the time we have for today. Signing off from Chicago, and good night. I'm Alex Burstein.